Hello and welcome to NewsClick. This program is Real News. Today we have with us Commander Bharadwaj, and we'll discuss what has been talked about as the new strategic agreement, the Logistics Exchange Memorandum Agreement with United States. This for India is a first. We never really had this kind of agreement with any country earlier, did we?
First question is that for India, it is not the first time that we are getting into such an agreement with the United States, because there is a long history which goes back to the Second World War, when the US had a military base, a proper military base for its Far East operations in India.
But that was not independent India, that was British.
That is a lot of concessions at that time which they gained, continued post-war and even in the post-independence era. For example, in 49, Nehru specifically signed an agreement with United States where the military aircrafts could fly in and out of India without any problems. So, this is not the first time that India is getting into such an agreement, and to such an extent that the United States Embassy had 2 military aircraft positions at Palam Airport permanently from 46 onwards, and which went up to 1966.
What then stopped the 1966 agreement from going forward, and is this then something new, or is there nothing new in this?
There is a lot new in this agreement, because 1966 is primarily stopped because the US started having different aircrafts. The Navy and the Air Force then started having their separate kind of a logistic airlift commands. So, automatically those became redundant, and second issue was at that particular time in mid 60s, if you see, America was courting China at that time. By 71 they were already close. So, they had to distance themselves from India. They were not really interested that much in India at that time. Now, they are back in India sort of thing. So, in that sense, but this is different.
And if you remember the Bangladesh issue in 71,
yes.
The India and China really were at opposite ends. The US was also sending its 7th Fleet, appeared at that point of time, could even intervene militarily in the Bangladesh issue.
So, that was the phase when US didn't really require India. They were playing a different game with China at that time, and playing a different game with the USSR or Soviet Union at that particular time. Now, things are very different. Now, the pivot is Asia. At that particular stage, they were looking at Gulf oil was the main concern. So, Pakistan was the biggest ally in that particular game. Now, it is pivot Asia. So, their focus is now Asia, and within Asia their focus is primarily China.
Containment of China.
There are a lot of people who say that India has signed this agreement, but America has signed such an agreement with 100 other countries. The fact is that for India it is the first, for America it is the 100th odd agreement.
What is the content of the agreement? A lot of people have said, well, this is really very minimal, nothing is major. Yes, there is an issue of optics that India is signing a defense agreement with the United States, but what is significant in terms of the agreement itself?
The significance is that it brings you closer militarily to one of the biggest military powers in the world. America spends something like $750 billion per year on its defense. If you put the other 10 countries, then they are not even reaching over there.
What are the basic terms of this agreement? Are you offering them some refueling and maintenance facilities? Are you offering them some physical bases? What is physically on offer?
This is till now the government has not actually made the agreement public, but whatever is available through the press reports or through the media editorial reports. But by and large, the agreement is that India would provide logistic facilities to their fleet or any other, whether it is aircraft or troops or the ships coming in and operating from India, or for that matter just using it as a rest and recuperation place.
So, there are fight somewhere, come back, rest and go back.
Yes.
As they were doing, for instance, in Thailand during the Vietnam War.
Yes.
Is that what it means?
That's what it would probably mean. At the moment, war is not specified in the agreement. What is specified in the agreement is basically for for humanitarian disaster relief purposes. If they have some, say, tsunami comes in and they get their ships here, then they may base their ships here. But no operation is going to, be very, it's not that they'll just come, they'll just come, refuel and go back. They could also be requiring repair facilities in India. So, if they require repair facilities in India, then what happens? And American logistics, American military logistics, if you see, has all been outsourced. It has been outsourced to top corporations. For example, Lockheed Martin is involved in military logistics. Daycorp is involved in military logistics. L3, one of the biggest military companies in the world, is involved in military logistics. So, here you are not just talking in terms of the American state coming and interacting, you are talking of large corporations coming in. Now, these large corporations are now, earlier we were only, our capital budget was going outside. Now, you will see even your revenue budgets will come under, will be tapped in by these companies.
So, you are saying apart from the investment in defense industries, this could also mean these companies coming in for service industries and also acting through Indian partners and trying to take over a part of the defense service budget.
Yes, we have actually opened our defense service sector to them, to the foreign players.
As a consequence of this?
As a consequence of this, because the US is wherever, over the last 12 years, some $400 billion these companies have made in overseas bases, just overseas bases of the United States.
The other part of it is purely also the optics of it, and the optics in politics is a very important element, that here is a pivot to Asia that the United States is doing, as you talked about. There is a containment of China policy. We have talked about earlier the South China Sea and the kind of brinkmanship the United States is doing in that area. Do you think that this agreement therefore is also making public that we are now more and more siding with America, and therefore this is a geostrategic shift that we are openly making?
Yes, we have, this is absolutely an open signal that we are now aligned.
We have done this for a very long time.
Yes, we had never actually overtly said that we are aligned, but now we are saying that, it is like Pakistan getting into SEATO or CENTO pacts in 1950s. So, now we are actually becoming a part of the larger game which is happening in the world.
So, this is a military agreement, and therefore, the signal that the military alliance is quote unquote in the making.
It is a military agreement. You cannot say, when you are talking in terms of bases, they say that it will give India quite a reach outside and India would be able to use. The very fact is, it will be, the cost involved are prohibitive for Indians, because Americans, when they come here, the agreement says, which is out in the open, that they would be, no customs will be levied on their equipment which comes in, no customs will be levied on the, suppose if American troops were to be stationed here for some time, and if Coca-Cola, if a lot of Coca-Cola, a lot of chocolates have to come in, those chocolates will not be bought from India. Those chocolates will actually be flown, because they do not trust the Indian waters. So, those chocolates will actually, those Coca-Colas will actually be transported directly from America into India, and no customs will be charged on it. So, there are huge challenges involved in actually assessing this entire agreement. And suppose India was to go to the Eco Garcia, India would pay what Americans pay, which is in dollar terms, which is much more. Similar things are going to happen during the exercises. One of the clauses in the agreement is that even during exercises, this agreement will come into play.
How do you see this grow? That do you think that this is now getting into a scenario where on the issue of China will be seen much more in adversarial terms, and essentially we have now signaled that we are on the other side?
Yes, this does mark a strategic shift, in the sense that now we are officially aligned.
Do you see therefore that what India used to play, the role India used to play as an independent player, that yes, we had our interests, and yes, on our interests sometimes you could on certain issues be with China, on certain issues with America, certain issues with Russia, we could sort of take our self-interest as the guiding principle. Do you see this getting, therefore, more dragged into quote unquote the American self-interest?
Yes, because we are basically catering to the American self-interest. Even when we talk of outreach, some people, a lot of people who support the agreement are saying that this will provide us a facility to go out into South China Sea, where the American bases will help us in terms of our logistic requirements. But the fact is that we have not actually argued what is the purpose for which we will be going. What is it that we will go and achieve? Once your ships go out into the sea, basically either you are one needs to understand how you control. It is not just controlling through chaukidari or controlling by being just a watchman in the sea. Basically, you need to control trade. You need to control the channels of the channels on which the trade flows. Whether you are do you have the capacity to underwrite the trade which moves on those channels? You don't.
Well, we seem to be also trying to get into a relationship of some kind with Vietnam. All of it seems to be now oriented towards China. Given the fact that we were at one point of time talking about friendship, strategic relationship with everybody, which is what Modi had discussed with Xi Jinping earlier. This seems to be quite a reversal of policy, don't you think?
It is a reversal of policy. It is like, I would call, you're trying to go to Vietnam and you're trying to play it up as if Vietnam is going to be your next what Pakistan is to China. You thinking that you will make Vietnam as some. No, Vietnam is a very different player in the whole game. If you see, actually, what we are hoping is that all players will, whether it is Japan, whether it is Korea, whether it is Vietnam, whether it is Philippines, most of these countries actually have a huge grievance against the United States of America. They have all been massive victims of American politics or military over the past 50, 60 odd years. Japan, nuclear bomb. Vietnam, we all know what happened to Vietnam just about 40 odd years back.
Thank you very much, Atul. This has been really a wonderful discussion. We'll come back to you with more discussions regarding the geostrategic issues that are emerging now in South Asia and also the larger parts of Asia. Thank you very much. This is all the time we have in NewsClick today. Keep watching NewsClick for future episodes.